Every morning is the same at my house. I'm up at 5:30 and out the door with our eager-to-pee dog, Maggie. But first she has to point at a squirrel in the tree and stare down the bunny on the lawn, finally doing her business under her favorite tree where the grass grows particularly green. As we round the corner back toward home, having sniffed every blade of grass in our neighborhood, the driver who delivers our morning paper screeches around the corner, and I offer my customary greeting, a raised bag of warm dog poop. And so the day begins. But there was a wrinkle in our routine Friday morning. As I walked toward the house, I saw something odd lying in the driveway. A rolled piece of paper covered in enormous letters. It didn't look like my morning paper, but without my glasses on, it was hard to tell. The pup and I approached it cautiously, wondering what sort of literary bomb was about to detonate in our driveway. It was this. Did anybody else get this Friday morning? 4 pages of this. A faux front page of the Chicago Tribune. Even under the kitchen's bright lights and with my glasses on, it made no sense. So I Googled the fine print right here, YeezySupply.com, and it was no help. Here's what the website said. Kanye West promotes Yeezy Boost 350 VT Triple White. I admit I am a Luddite with regard to popular culture, and it was early in the day, so my mind fluttered with barely formed questions. Kanye West, is that Mae West's little brother? Yeezy, is that an expression of delight like booyah? Boost 350 VT, is that an energy drink like they give my mother at the nursing home, or maybe a New England license plate? And what's a triple white? Toothpaste? The answer to all those silly questions is no. Mr. West, who is one of the most famous men in the universe, was simply trying to up the stakes in the great debate in which our whole country is currently embroiled. In a world puking with images and messages and attempts to get our attention and make everything great again, Mr. West bested them all. This 4-page ad is touted, and I quote, the single biggest Yeezy release in history, whatever Yeezy is, I have no idea, for sneakerheads, also a new word, willing to drop $220 retail on a pair of shoes unique because they boast a prime knit upper boost tooling SPLY 350 and a stripe located on the medial side. Are those even words? Mr. West spent millions and millions of dollars to advertise a shoe. Is it the greatest shoe ever made? Is he the greatest ad man in American history? Or are we the greatest suckers on the surface of the planet? Did you know gullible isn't in the dictionary? Greatest is a relative term. Greatest at what? By whose measure? Is greatness really the goal? And who really cares? Jesus' disciples could not have known that their bickering behind Jesus' back would be front-page news, earning them the ridicule of millions of Jesus fans in the centuries that followed. Like Mr. West and others who thirst for attention and fame, these uneducated itinerant groupies were most concerned about their own press. Though they had followed Jesus everywhere, had seen him perform miracles never before performed, they hung on his every word and were privy to his secret identity. Their concerns seemed to be always and only for themselves. And Jesus, who like my mother still has eyes and ears on the back of her head, asked them, "What were you arguing about on the way here?" Ashamed to admit their foolishness, they fell silent. But Mark, who moonlights as a gossip writer, whispers in our ear, they were arguing about which of them was the greatest. The greatest at what? Discipleship? Obedience? Humility? Hardly. They were greatest at being selfish. And to emphasize how far they had fallen, Jesus reached even lower for something even smaller, in physical stature at least. Jesus reached for a child playing in the dirt at his feet. No big deal, right? Politicians are always kissing babies. Why shouldn't Jesus do the same? But Jesus wasn't running for office, mugging for the cameras. He was doing something no respectable adult male in the first century would have even thought to do. Unlike we, who love children to the point of worshiping them, in Jesus' day, children were pretty much pointless. In the first century and until the 19th century, the chance of a child dying before the age of 5 was 50%. Little ones often were unnamed until it was clear that they would live. Death in childhood was just as likely as life, so it was best not to get attached, not to care, not to invest. In other words, and it hurts to say this, like dogs and women, children became important only when they became useful. So imagine the offense that Jesus, recently named Messiah by his own followers, would kneel to the ground, scoop up something that in the disciples' eyes was little more than a mongrel, and say, "This is important. This nameless child is of more value than all of you put together. And when you welcome one of these, you have welcomed me. And by extension, you have welcomed my Father, whose child I am." Jesus didn't surround himself with the world's greatest. He surrounded himself with people of a whole new category. Last is first, lowest is highest, and smallest is greatest. So how do we become great again in Jesus' eyes, in God's world? By being not great, by lowering ourselves, by forgetting ourselves. Not by being as children. The way adults behave in public today is an insult to childish behavior, but by honoring what the child represented for Jesus. We honor the one least worthy of honor. We praise the one least worthy of praise. We love the ones least worthy of our love. Jesus was probably wearing a hat that said, "Make humility great again." A marriage and family counselor under whom I once studied said that he held the secret to a good marriage and a happy home. And I think he was right. Everyday honors, he called them. That's the key. Everyday honors. What's an everyday honor? Small gifts of unexpected kindness every day. This is the example he used. Though he was not a morning person, he woke each morning before his wife to make her coffee. He didn't need to. He often didn't want to. He doesn't even drink coffee. But every day he honored her with a cup size full of "I love you." It's not hard to perform these everyday honors. Fish the neighbor's newspaper out from under the porch where my Chicago Trib driver throws it every morning. Give the dog an extra treat. Share an umbrella with a stranger. Let somebody else have that great parking spot. Pay a compliment. Open a door. Everyday honors. Kindnesses we don't have to commit. Gifts we don't have to give. Love we don't expect to have returned. And we know we have committed such an honor when the other says, "Thanks, you didn't have to do that." That's right. we didn't. It may sound foolish to speak of such small things as the honor and the greatness of which Jesus spoke, but they are, and all of these little things are just practice. Practice on the easy days, for the hard days when we will be called upon to kneel, to serve, to love, to sacrifice for a stranger, for an enemy, even if it puts us in danger. After all, how will you know how to be a humble hero in a crisis if you're a selfish slob the rest of the time? James, the epistle writer, describes the disciples' life this way, the everyday honor life. It is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, willing to yield, full of mercy and good fruits, without a trace of partiality or hypocrisy. Those who are great by the world's standards spend a lot of money, make a lot of noise, demand a lot of attention, and expect a lot of service. And those who are great by the world's standards still argue about who is the greatest. By day's end on Friday, there were reports that the Yeezy Boost 350 V2 triple white shoes were selling for more than 10 times retail. That's great, don't you think? Let it not be so among us. We are to kneel at the feet of the world's poor, who are lucky if they have shoes at all. We glory in our shame. We revel in our weakness, fully believing that to be the greatest is to be the very least.